whenever an object is created, it automatically calls the constructor.
Muted.
Now, quite opposite to constructors, we also have another concept called as destructors here. Let's see what they are meant for. And destructor is always written as, again, the class name. And it says that it should be preceded by tilde symbol, thus it differentiates itself from the constructor. So what do we do in the destructor? Nothing. So I will simply say I'll just put a message destructor has been called. And I'm just having console.read key so that I get a chance to see that message. So what are destructors here? Destructors are meant for destroying the object or freeing up the memory what is being allocated by the constructor. So constructors allocates memory and destructors deallocates memory. Destructor function name should be class name preceded by tilde symbol. And destructors should not have any access modifiers like public, private, or protected. So we just simply write tilde symbol on the class name. So again, if you see in our program, there are three functions. Employee is a constructor, is a function. This is also a function, and this is also a function. But out of three functions, how many functions am I calling? Only the display function. Because constructors and destructors are called automatically. As I said, constructor will be called when an object is created. And destructor is called generally at the end of the program to kill this object. So if I run this code, of course this is the values are coming from the constructor, and when I press enter, the program gets over, and then I can see the message destructor has been called. So that clearly tells you constructors and destructors are very special functions. We don't have to call them. They get called at right time. When an object is created, then it calls the constructor. When you're coming out of the function, or when the program is getting ended, then it calls the destructor. If you want, you can put some message in the constructor as well. Something like constructor has just been called. So if I run this code, you can see the message constructor has just been called, and then these messages destructor perfect. So now you know about constructors and destructors, but what you have to understand in .NET, it is recommended in .NET not to write destructor by yourself. Like in C++ and all, we encourage people to write destructors so that the memory will be freed up. But in the case of .NET, we have a concept to call as garbage collection. Of course, we have the same thing in Java as well. So this garbage collector's duty is to monitor, are there any unused objects in the memory and that are taking up space. So such objects it automatically kills. So that there won't be any memory leaks, such kind of things. So just because I need to show you what is the destructor I have written, but in reality we don't have to write any destructor in case of .NET applications. Okay, so those are the main points. If you want, I can put those main points in some kind of comments. Let me do that. I can put some points for you. As I said, constructor function name should be class name, you know that. It should not have any return type, that's okay. Mostly it is declared with public modifier, as you can see here. And it automatically gets called whenever an object is created. Its purpose is to initialize class variables, and it is responsible for allocating memory. Okay, initializing means like this, giving some default values. And in the case of destructor, it's quite opposite. As I said, its function name should be class name prefixed with tilde symbol. It should not have any return type, and it should not have any class access modifiers. And it automatically gets called at the end of the program or function. And it is responsible for deallocating the memory for every object. Perfect. So now you know what is a constructor and you know what is a destructor. Yesterday we did talk about one concept called as overloading functions. I have overloaded the add function and then I use some varying parameters. Today I will talk about another concept called as overloading constructors. Now you see, for example, this is the constructor I'm having currently, and this is called as default constructor. So what is a default constructor? A constructor with no arguments, with no parameters. See, within the parentheses I have written nothing. So that's a default constructor. So that means what? If I don't pass any values to my constructor, then it actually takes these three values. But what if I wish to supply some values by myself? Suppose I'm trying to create another constructor which will have only one parameter. So here I will say this dot eCode equal to eCode. What is it? This is called as a single argument constructor. So what is a single argument constructor? You can see the function name is employee. The function name is also employee. That means the function name is duplicated. That means the function name is duplicated, just like add function yesterday. The function name is duplicated, but it has different parameters. Here it was not having any arguments, and here it is having one argument. Of course, the receiving variable name, I have taken it as eCode. It can be XYZ. If this is XYZ, then I would have simply written eCode equal to XYZ. But just to avoid confusion, I have taken the receiving variable name as eCode, which is very similar to my class variable eCode. So when your receiving variable and your class variable spellings are same, we can identify the class variable by using the word this. This dot eCode means the class variable and then this parameter. Perfect. So this is a single argument constructor. So let me go for another double argument constructor. So this time I'll say public employee int of eCode. So I said this dot eCode equal to eCode and this dot salary. So this example is called as overloading constructor. So what do you mean by overloading here? Overloading means using the same function name again and again with different number of parameters. But we ensure that data types are also different. Now let me go ahead and try to write another constructor this time. Now this is having integer and integer, right? Suppose I'm copying this. And here I will say string of employee name. So now we say this dot eCode equal to eCode and this dot ename equal to ename. So you can see this is again a double argument constructor because this is having two parameters. This is also having two parameters. The number of parameters can be same provided the data types are different. Here it's int, and here it is int string. What is the other combination I can have? So if I can copy this, I can paste it. This time this is okay because I'm having string, integer, int string, and int. So almost now how many constructors I have? This is my default constructor with no parameters. This is a single argument. In fact, I can have another single argument constructor if I wish. So for example, this constructor is receiving only one parameter like this one. It's just that its data type is different, and that's actually acceptable. So now we have one default constructor, two single argument constructors, and we almost have three double argument constructors. So I can still go ahead and further and write triple argument constructor as well. So I can say public employee. So we have for e-code, we have salary, and we have employee name. So this is a triple argument constructor which is having three parameters. Now what is the order we have? Int string. So can I have it as int string int and string int? Yes, I can. So I can simply copy this, paste it, and I can cut this e name, put somewhere here. So we have string int, that's okay. And the last one, and in the last one we are having it as int string int. So like this we have three triple argument constructors. The order is int string, string int, string int. That's okay. So overall, how many constructors I have written? Almost like 9 constructors I have written now. So this is what we call as overloading. So as I said, overloading means what? Means using the same function name for multiple times, but by ensuring the number of parameters are different. Even if they are same, then ensure if the number of parameters are same, just ensure the order of data types are different, and that's what I did. So now what's the advantage of overloading? First of all, we now know how to overload, but what's the advantage? Now see, for example, I want to create an object called as X, and for the X employee, I don't know his e-code, I don't know his e-name, I don't know his salary, so obviously this is how I can create. Let's say I have another object called as Y. So where I'm passing something like say 222. So that means what? I have a guy called as Y whose E code I know, so I just pass E code. For example, I have another person called as Z. I know his E code. No, sorry, I just know his name. Something like say. So in this case, we only know his E code. In this case, we only know his E name. Let's say employee of P equal to new of employee of 333 and something like that. So here I know his E code as well as his E name. That's okay. I have another guy called as Q. So here I know his E code, his E name. Here I know his E name, his E code. That's fine. And what else we can have? We have written a double argument. Interestingly, when I type new of employee and then I open the brackets, can you see 1 of 9? And when I use the arrow keys on the keyboard, it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That means I can create an object of the employee class in 9 different variations. Okay. So for this guy, we say 555, and the salary is so and so. It's okay. And now it's time for us to, so we have called the default constructors, we have called single argument constructors, and we have called double argument constructors as well. We'll say employee of S equal to new of employee of, we want 666, and salary is so and so, and something, something. And then we can go for T equal to 777. That's okay. So here int string int. Now this time I have to go for so that's it. So overall we now have 9 different variations. X I haven't passed anything, and for Y it's applied two different values. First time integer, next time string. This is int string int string int string int. Yeah, so it's called 9 different combinations. So what's the advantage of doing like this? As I said, it's just convenience basically. I can create an object the way I like. So that's what do we call as overloading. Of course, at the end of the program, let me print all the values. X, Y dot display, Z dot display, P dot display, Q dot display, R dot display, S dot display. And we got T dot display, and we have U dot display as well. Yeah, so I'm just trying to print the values of all the 9 variables. Now if I run this code, yeah, I can see for X, that's the default value. This is for Y. For Y, you have supplied only employee code, so the remaining things are blank. And for Z, we have supplied only the employee name, so the remaining values are blank. And for P, Q, R, S, T, U like this. So this is how I can overload my constructors. That means I can create an object of my employee class the way I like. Sometimes I pass 1, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes I don't pass anything. That's the convenience for the developer to create an object of the class the way we like. Of course, yesterday I did say if you use .NET's inbuilt function, for example, console.writeLine, we have, when I open the brackets, can you see one of 19? What is 19? That means Microsoft guys have overloaded the writeLine functions 19 times. So I can actually use writeLine function for 19 different purposes. So as I use the arrow keys, you can see the documentation. Out of this, we are only using one variation of this function as of today, only this one, the 11th syntax, where I'm supplying some value. But in reality, yes, I can use writeLine function in 19 different ways by passing different number of parameters, or even if I pass the same number of parameters, I ensure their order of data types are different. So the real purpose of overloading is we will have less number of functions to remember in our mind. But the single function can do 10 things or 20 things. If you see in C language, there is no overloading. Function name cannot be duplicated. So in that case, what happens? We would have written 20 different functions with separate names. And we have to remember all those 20 different function names. But here I remember only one function called as writeLine, but it can do 20 things for me. And my constructor can do 9 things for me like this. The advantage of constructors is your function names can be duplicated. But when you duplicate your function names, the number of parameters should be different. Even if number of parameters are same, just ensure the data types are different. That's how we talk about overloading constructors. Of course, destructors cannot be overloaded. Okay, destructors cannot be overloaded. Only constructors can be overloaded. First of all, we say we shouldn't write the destructor at all because in .NET we have garbage collection. So there is no point of writing more than one destructor. Perfect. So now yesterday we talked about classes and objects, and today we talked about constructors and destructors. And we also talked about overloading constructors. Now we'll take up another exercise called as working with multiple objects. But you might say, we have already worked with multiple objects because I've got 9 different objects in this program. If we have worked already with multiple objects, then why there's a new demonstration from me? I don't mean to say working with multiple objects like this. I meant to say working with multiple objects in a single function is what we did all these days. So what do you mean by working with only one object in one function? For example, when I say x.display, display is a function which you're calling with an object called as x. So obviously it goes to display function. And then it tries to print eCode, ename, and salary. But this eCode, ename, salary, of which object's data is it going to print? Obviously, with whichever object you call the function, we actually access the data of that object on that function. When the same display function, I call it with y, then this is y.eCode, y.ename, and y.salary. And when I call the same function with z, it's actually z.eCode, z.ename, and z.salary. So now you understood this left side object is called as a hidden object or a default object. So whenever you call a function, you actually access the data of that left side object by default in the function. So in this way, in all these display functions, I'm able to access the data of only one object, that is the left side object. But what if somebody tells me they want to add the salaries of two people? For example, let's say you want to add the salary of R with the salary of S, and you want to put the result into some other object. See, for example, I'm trying to have one more object. So here we have an object called as V. Okay. Now what's my intention? I want to add the salary of R, which is 4 5s, with the salary of Stephen, where the salary is 46. So this 4 5s plus 4 6, the total some 11,500. I would like to store it into the object V. So that means you want to work with multiple objects. You want to add the salaries of R and S, and you want to put the result into the third object called as V. So how do we do that? So let me actually come up with some concept called as working with multiple objects. So obviously, people, you all might be thinking, we can add objects like this. V equal to R plus S. But that's not correct. You can see I'm having a red line here. It tells me operator plus cannot be applied to operands of type employee and employee. That means obviously you cannot use operators directly with the objects, because operators can only be used with primitive types. Means the default data types like int, string, float, decimal, double, like that. You cannot use any operators with objects by default. So this statement is not correct. So in that case, how do I do that? So I can actually do something like this. Somewhere here I can say V equal to R dot sum of Y. This is called as passing objects and returning objects. Yeah, so as I said, all these days we were able to use the data of only one object in one function. But if you wish to work with multiple objects, like in this case, how many objects I'm working with? 2 objects. If you want to work with n objects, n number of objects, you have to pass n minus 1 as parameters. Here I wanted to add 2 objects, so I passed 1. So you're passing y. Sorry, is it y or s? Sorry. Yes, okay. So we are passing s, and we are calling the function sum with r. Of course, sum is a user-defined function which I haven't written yet. Okay, I have to write that function. So if you want, you can just put the mouse there. Yeah. So now it has automatically returned sum function for me. You can see employee sum instead of this local function. That's okay. So you can see now public employee. What is this employee? The return data type. Sum is my function name, and this is my receiving parameter. So now I can simply say, I can create some dummy objects, something like say T. I can say T dot salary equal to R dot salary plus S dot salary. So how have I called this function? The sum function. And then finally I can say return of T. This is actually a local object, temporary object. So my intention is to add the salaries of R and S. We are calling the sum function with the object R, and we are passing S. This S will come into this S, and anyway I'm calling the sum function with R objects. So the left side object's data you can access directly. In reality, this is R dot salary and this is S dot salary. So these things are getting added, and the result comes to T, and this T goes to where? To V. And now if I say V dot display, I should see something like 11,500 or 12,000 for that matter. So salary, now it's coming it as 12,221. So interestingly, if I press enter, you can see how many destructors are getting called. For every object it calls constructor, and for every object it calls destructor as well. So when I say V dot display, the salary is there. But interestingly, for the guy V, I'm seeing these names, right? The default values, yes, because when I created the object V, it was created without passing any parameters. So obviously for this guy, the employee code and employee name are same. It's just that the salary is different. The salary is actually sum of 4 6 plus 4 5, which is actually 12,021. So this is all. If you want to work with multiple objects, the only solution is you have to pass those additional objects as parameters. Okay, I'll continue this demonstration. Just give me a minute's time. Yeah. I'll take every day 1 minute's time at around 6:45 because I have very less break for my next session. Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay, so this is how I was able to demonstrate working with multiple objects. We were working with 2 objects. What if somebody tells me, now you want to add the salaries of R, S, and T. So obviously, what do we say? So in that case, you will tell me V equal to R dot sum of T comma U. And then again, I can say V dot display. So again, I'm getting an error because the sum function is a user-defined function whose name can be X, Y, Z. And I have returned the sum function which was receiving only one object. Now here I wanted to add 3 objects, so I have to pass 2 as parameters, which is I want to work with n objects called as 3, so 3 minus 1, 2 objects. The left side is always the default object. So we haven't written this function, so obviously I have to write this function. So you can see there's a new function here. So here I can simply say, what's the other one? U dot salary. So I'm able to add 3 different objects here. What were the objects we were passing? RTU, right? Okay, so we have an object employee of temp equal to new of employee, temp dot salary equal to salary. What is this salary? Is obviously that left side object's data, which is R. This is R dot salary, T dot salary, and U dot salary. We're adding 3 objects, and this temp is getting returned. So this temp goes back to V, and then we are printing. So what is U salary in our case? 888, 48, yeah. So 4 5s, 4 6, and 4 8s, almost like 12,220. So this is how you can understand now how I'm able to work with multiple objects. If you want to work with multiple objects, the only solution is to pass those remaining parameters, remaining objects as parameters. Suppose this is a never-ending process. Now, if I say v dot sum r dot sum of, let's say I want to add, what are the other objects we have? Let's say ZPQR, Z comma P comma Q. Yeah. So here, for the sum function, I was only passing one parameter. Here I'm passing 2 parameters. And here I'm passing 3 parameters. That means sum is overloaded, just like my constructor in my previous example. I have overloaded earlier constructors. Now I'm overloading my user-defined sum function. So again, this is giving me an error because there is no sum function that is receiving 3 parameters. So I can again create a function here. So if I go back, so I've got my sum function. So we have Z, P, and Q, right? So this is Z dot salary. And this is P dot salary. And this is Q dot salary. So in this case, we are working with 4 objects, Z, P, Q, and of course the default object is R. So we are adding the salaries of 4 different people. So this is how every time when I want to add a new guy's salary, we are almost overloading the function. So this is 1 parameter, 2 parameters, 3, like this. It's never-ending process. So if I say run, I can see What was the message we got? Something's wrong. Let's correct that. Oh, unfortunately, the reason our salary was 4/5, right? So I was adding our salary with ZPQ, and very interestingly, for ZPQ there were no salaries. Yeah, so we haven't given any value for Z and P and Q. That's the reason the sum is also coming as 4/5. That's okay. You understood the concept. I was trying to add R with ZPQ. Unfortunately, for Z and for P and for Q, there were no salaries. Yeah, that was the reason the sum is still coming as 4/5, but otherwise it will do. So now you understood how I can work with multiple objects. The only way to work with multiple objects is to pass those remaining objects as parameters, and the left side object is always default. But what if somebody tells me now, the last time, that they want to add all these objects, um, Y, Z, P, Q, STU, everything. Of course, we don't have any function that is adding STU, right? For example, if somebody tells me to add V equal to R dot sum of X comma Y comma P comma Q comma S comma T comma U, so many things, okay? So I have to really struggle now. I have to write a sum function which will receive 7 parameters. Instead of that, I can do something like this. R dot sum of X dot sum of Y dot sum of P dot sum of, like this. Understand, but I'll actually do something like this. R dot sum of T dot sum of U dot sum of. This is much better. If I can use this syntax, this is called as nested callings. If I can use this syntax, how many objects am I adding really? R, T, U, and S. Of course, I'm adding 4 objects. But to make this statement valid, you only need one function that receives one parameter. So initially what happens, U and S will go and we get a temp, and then T and temp will go, we get a temp, and R and temp will go and we get a temp. So frankly speaking, if I have to add multiple objects, I don't have to overload like this if I can use this syntax. So one object goes at a time. Initially U and S will go. So when U and S will go, it returns a T. Then T and T will go, we get a T, and R and T will go, we get a T. That's okay. In fact, the last one should show me the salary as 28,000, which is nothing but the sum of R, T, U, S. So that's how you can actually play with overloading. So, and also you can play with working with multiple objects. I use a bit tricky logic here. So if I use this kind of syntax, then I don't have to overload my functions at all, because at a time only 2 objects are going. Okay. So we talked about class and objects yesterday. We talked about constructors and destructors. We talked about overloading constructors. We talked about this, working with multiple objects, all these things. We have also overloaded a normal sum function as well. So I'll stop here, and if you have any questions, you can talk to me now.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I have one question. Like, why does that employee sum, the third function on the screen now show, like, it says internal while the other two are public?
No, actually, I typed these functions by myself,
Okay.
and I just try to use that syntax of generate method stuff. So internal is again another modifier, pretty much like public,
Public.
private, and protected.
Okay.
So internal means it can be used within that namespace only.
Okay.
So in future we'll be talking about assemblies and all. And if you create an assembly with functions marked as internal, it cannot be called from outside of that assembly.
Okay.
But it can be called from other places, but not from outside of that assembly. So because it has automatically made it as internal, although it's not really required, I can keep this as public.
Okay.
No
Okay.
problems.
Thank you.
And also I know that you missed yesterday's session, so I'll send you the recorded stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Bhuvan, I think you are the new guy. I couldn't speak to you. What's your requirement? I heard something you just need C#, something. What's your exact requirement?
Yes, I'm here just for learning C#. So the way that you're showing to me is like, I guess that this is totally the .NET stuff, and probably the concepts that you're explaining are pretty much the ones that I needed. So that's completely okay for me. And I guess this is my second class. This is my first class. I have missed the yesterday's class too. So probably we can
Yeah,
probably
yesterday you came, but you didn't speak to me. You were just for 5-10 minutes and you left.
But I guess, I mean, I was into the class after 1 hour of the class has started. So I'm already late, and I'm not even sure
Yeah,
whether I am to this class or whether I joined into some other class.
yeah, I understand. Okay. Okay, no problems. Yesterday was day one, so I can send you that recorded stuff, no issues. So you want to do this entire course, you mean?
I need to figure out, because I need to talk with a couple of guys regarding this thing, because the .NET is not my cup of tea. I'm here only for C#. I don't know how many days there's, how many days do generally you take for completing the C#?
No, let me answer you. Let me tell you this way. This course teaches you C# with ASP.NET, okay?
Okay.
When you say you want to learn only C#, I don't get that point.
The base point for me to ask this thing is like, basically I'm applying for a couple of positions in Microsoft, and my background is I'm a QA. So here Microsoft, there are like a lot of STAT positions. STAT is nothing but you need to have the base knowledge about, because they do have a couple of tools where they use only C#, and the regular testing methodologies will be applied along with C#. So for that reason, I was like looking for some course where I can learn only C#.
So where are you from? You're in which country?
I'm in US.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you are a tester, you mean? You are a QA guy?
Yes.
No. Okay, I'll tell you this way. See, this course is for pure coders, okay, pure developers basically.
Okay.
But basically this makes you a developer. This course makes people code writers basically.
Okay.
You learn everything, how to develop websites and everything.
Yes.
So
I know what you're talking about. But I completely understand what you're trying to explain to me. But here my only constraint is like I was not here to learn the coding and all this stuff, but I'm not here to be a .NET developer. I'm here only to learn this basic C# thing. I know
Yeah,
even for that I need.
Yeah,
I was
go ahead.
I was like going through a couple of online tutorials where they were like explaining only about the concepts. So I thought that probably C# will be dealing something uh, where all I need to have is like the base knowledge of some basic C and the other funda concepts of some funda OOPS concepts. So I'm already familiar with those things. I thought that C# will be very easy. That was the reason why I was like very particularly saying to the other guy that okay, I'm here only for C#.
Yeah, no, if you're just looking for some basics of OOPS and all, then we will finish OOPS itself in the next 3 days. Yeah, and then we'll start with ASP.NET. Basically, I mean, my statement is learning C# and learning .NET are actually same, because we do entire .NET using C#. C# has no endpoint, basically. That's what I want to say.
Okay.
Tomorrow, after 3-4 days, when I teach ASP.NET to others, I use C# to teach ASP.NET. That's what you have to catch.
Okay.
Okay, so it's up to you. You take a call to what extent you want to be with me.
Yes, sure. I'll come back to you on this.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so thanks everyone. I'll see you tomorrow, same timings. Bye.